Hey Casper Warriors, it's that time of the day where we just have a little bit of fun with some shots. Today I just want to show you some of my favorite clips on this channel. This is a collection of some of the coolest chess traps that I have covered on this channel. And I'll try my best to also feature in some other interesting clips to balance the equation. And don't forget to subscribe. What I want to do to my opponent is this. I want to try out a beautiful trap against them in the Gunsburg variation, starting with a move pawn to e4. If pawn to e5, I'm going to play the normal knight to f3, so that after knight c6, I may transpose this into the 4 knights game like this. Now the move I'm dreaming of is pawn to a3. So if black plays the top played move bishop c5, the plan is to go knight takes e5. I just want to sacrifice my knight so that if knight takes, I can go pawn to d4, trying to force black to give up his bishop pair very early in the opening stage, because in this position, bishop takes d4 is the only correct move. But I don't know why most people like playing bishop d6, allowing white to go pawn to f4. If knight g6, you go pawn to e5. Anyways, black is still gonna lose a piece here. If bishop e7, you can simply ignore this and add more salt to the wound. The thing is, you're gonna walk away with a piece, whether black likes it or not. This was a 3 minutes blitz match that I played against a 2292 rated chess player. I started with knight c3, my opponent responded with d5, I knew. Then I played pawn to e4. He took my pawn, I took back with my knight. Then bishop f5 was played, attacking my knight, but first of all I gave a check on b5 with my bishop. And after pawn to c6, I protected my knight this way. Then my opponent played bishop g6 because he didn't like the fact that his light squad bishop was somehow hanging. So I played queen e2, and all of a sudden my opponent played knight d7. This was a 2292 rated opponent, yet he fell for this simple smoother checkmate on move 7. And I'm planning to start with knight c3, and after d5, which is what they all do, I'll go pawn to a4, and after d4 I'll play knight e5. So there's a line that I want to play where we claim for a draw as quickly as possible. So I'm playing against a 2111 rated chess player, so let me go knight to c3, d5 just like I anticipated, a4, oh now c6. Okay, change of plan. My opponent is playing very fast, so let me go for a cheap trap, knight takes e4, and yep, smoothed mate. So I expected the game to end this way because my opponent was playing very fast, and look at that. Oh my god, the e-pawn can't take my knight because it is pinned by my queen to the king. So that's a smoothed mate, you guys. Let's go. Right, now this time I'll do less of commentary so that I can concentrate on the game. Okay, there we have the modern gambit accepted, queen d6, or bishop g4 first, pinning the knight to the queen. Okay, bishop d3, queen d6, defending my pawn. h3, white can't take my bishop, so knight c6, attacking the d4 pawn. Knight c3, I want to go e5, but first let me play s6, stopping knight b5. Still attacking the d4 pawn though, and I'm preparing to go pawn to e5, then e4 next. Yep. So bishop e3, e5. If anything, I'm ready to go e4. So I just pre-moved that. Pawn takes, knight takes. Queen d2, bishop takes, knight takes, f3 check. Okay, there we see my opponent just hanged his queen, but this is... So first, let's look at this move, bishop f4, which is the third common move in the Lichess database, where white tries to play in the London system style. So right on move 2, I want you guys to test your opponent's patience by going pawn to h5. First of all, there's nothing wrong with this move. It's just an early advancement of the h-pawn, and you just want to set a simple trap that may happen if white plays the top played move in the Lichess database, pawn to e3. What? The moment you see this move, guys, just know that it's game over. When last did you win the game of chess in 3 moves? What do you know about Casper? Nothing. Guys, the moment you see this move, just remember to go pawn to e5 immediately, and white's dark squared bishop is trapped. Just like that. Okay, say white takes with his pawn. This is where you go pawn to g5 period, and if bishop g3, you simply go pawn to h4. Start with a move pawn to d4, and then black responds with pawn to d5, go pawn to h4. This move pawn to h4 is more like a prophylactic move as well as an early advance. So first of all, I was inspired by this response, which is bishop f5, because there's a hidden trap that I'm sure you guys are going to find beautiful and helpful. You begin with knight to c3. Yes, as you can see, pawn to e6 is by far the most played move here. This is only the third move of the game, and trust me, right here, it's time for black to resign. We just go pawn to e4. Please, I want you to remember this move. So you're going to see black taking with his pawn anyways, after which you still go pawn to g4, and on the next move, you're going to trap the bishop. So back to this position, they might play bishop takes e4, start hunting this bishop. They will go bishop f5 again. You keep on chasing this bishop until it gets trapped. Okay, so d4, d5, and then pawn to h4. The most played move by far is knight to f6. You just simply go knight c3 once again. From here, black will just be playing the top played moves, and that's what we want. Bishop f5, you play bishop g5. Again, pawn to e6 is by far the top played move. Believe you me, black has to resign pawn to e4. If d takes e4, we simply go pawn to g4. So black has to take, we just take the defender of this bishop first, the knight, bishop takes our queen, but here we still take his queen, and now, ladies and gentlemen, it turns out that white is just up a full piece with a promising position. Instead of d takes e4, you may see black taking with his bishop anyways, but here we still go pawn to f3, bishop f5 is forced. You go g4, it doesn't even matter what black does, the bishop is dead. Did you see that? Even against this, there's a way in which you can punish black by taking on f7. So you just go d4, and once they play knight to f6, it's high time you go bishop c4, sacrificing your pawn on e4 for free. And see what people play on leeches. Knight takes e4, the top played move. Bishop takes f7 now becomes a possibility, because after king takes, you have queen h5 check. Once again, even though you're not winning the queen, as in the Leonid gambit, at least you're going to walk away with a knight. Now, yes, I understand this is still equal according to Stockfish, but at human level, someone may be out of his prep. Here, like the king is not that safe, you're about to push h4 and h5, destroy the king side, but most importantly, you first of all develop your minor pieces like this, your knight, and probably you castle long in the long run. So the main goal is just to make black lose his right to castle, and also just taking him out of his prep. Okay, now this feels illegal. Anyone who plays this gambit should be arrested. I'm talking about this weird chess gambit called the Williams gambit, which begins with a move pawn to f4, the bird opening. Now, before I challenge a random chess player on leeches for a match, I want to point out something here. One of the reasons I like this is that at least I'm 90% sure that my opponent will respond with pawn to d5 on the first move, which is the top played move, by the way, in the leeches database, as you can see. So once they do this, it is time to surprise them with a move pawn to e4. This is what I'm going to do against any random opponent, by the way, in no time. If my opponent takes on e4, I'm going to develop my light squad bishop, and after they play the top played move, knight f6, this is when I'm going to give them a second pawn. And the whole idea is to meet pawn takes with knight e2. I'm going to pre-move this like for real, because there's a hidden trap after pawn takes. This is where we win black's queen like this. So after knight f3 again, you can see black responding with the Caro-Kann defense, after which you just play the same line, pawn to d3 after d5. Okay, so the idea is that after pawn takes, you take back with your bishop, and knight to f6, knight takes f7 leads to the same trap as the one that we saw in the Tennyson gambit, where we play bishop g6 and win the black queen on d8. So again, you can still meet this in the Sicilian defense, let's say the Alpine variation, where we play knight to f3 after pawn to d5, so that if pawn takes, we go knight g5 attacking the pawn, and if knight to f6, which is what they do most of the times, you simply go pawn to d3, so that if pawn takes, you take back with your bishop, and after h6, you sacrifice your knight once again, and just like in the Tennyson gambit, you go bishop g6, winning the queen on d8. French players will always push pawn to d5 on the second move, intending to go pawn to c5 next, maybe because this is what they are used to, and now it is time for you to surprise them with the move pawn to d3, because after this you are intending to transpose into the Tennyson gambit, counter-attacking the pawn on e4, and we saw that most of the time black players would take on d3, after which you take back with your light squared bishop, and this is where we looked at the move pawn to h6 in part 1, where you can finish off your opponent very quickly if they are not careful like this, or if they don't play knight to f6 and let's say they go queen f6. We looked at this brilliant sacrifice as well, where they may end up losing their queen in this way. And we also looked at a very beautiful checkmate which can happen after pawn to g6, then you sacrifice your bishop. Then after pawn takes, you take back with your queen. If black's queen goes to a5, bishop c4 doesn't make a lot of sense because we are attacking nothing, even though it's playable by the way. But the move I recommend is just pawn to d4, so that if bishop g4 comes, you start chasing that bishop and then put your knight on e5, trying to get rid of that bishop. And at worst, your e knight is intended to sit on c4 attacking this queen, e.g. if queen s6, we can just go knight d6 check and win that queen. Or say queen b4, again we can just go pawn to a3, and once again black's queen is trapped or almost trapped. White plays pawn to d4 on the first move. You just play knight to c6, inviting white to advance his d pawn to d5. Knight e5, pawn to e4, we play e6, pawn to f4, again we sacrifice our knight and black takes. It is in this position where I said simply play queen h4 check. Now here white doesn't want to lose the rook. King e2, after queen h5 check, it will just be perpetual checks unless white wants to lose. And so you see them playing king d2, after which you play queen h6. So we'll just be playing in these squares that I have highlighted. Watch. King c3 by white, we play queen c6 check, king b3, queen b6 check, king c3, queen c6, we just want to have a draw. White plays king d2, again we go back to h6 check, king d3 may be played by white, queen h6 check, king d2, again queen h6 check, king e1, there's nothing that white can do. Now I'm pretty much sure that this is not the Messiah that I worship, could be a false prophet, but let's see how this Messiah performed his miracles in this game. Pawn to e4 was played by the Messiah, then his opponent responded with a Sicilian pawn to c5, and then knight to f3, d6, d4 was played, c takes d4, knight takes d4, all these are just normal moves, bishop c4, and I can promise you that you are going to see most of your weak opponents here taking on e4. I recommend that you play queen h5 first. Pawn to e6 is by far the most common move. Bishop b5 check, bishop d7 blocking the check is by far the most common move. Knight takes on e6, queen f5 check, but after bishop d2 covering the check, black just took on d2, bishop takes on d7, and that's how the whole kingdom of Babylon fell. So here white plays e4, then black responds with c5, the Sicilian defense. White goes knight f3. Most of the times you are going to see your opponents playing pawn to d6, pawn to d4. Black is going to take on d4, and then you will take back with your knight, knight to f6, just attacking the pawn on e4. Instead of going knight to c3, defending that pawn, I recommend that you go bishop c4. If black takes this free pawn, we are going to give him a check on f7 square, sacking our bishop. And if king takes on f7, we are going to play queen h5 check. And just like in the Alekhine defense, if pawn to g6, we are going to give him queen d5 check, winning back our knight. For example, in one of my games that I played against a 2300 rated chess player on Lichess, here my opponent made a blunder by playing bishop to e6, forgetting that I can still take that bishop and still win back my knight. Guys, again, after playing the bishop's opening and allowing black to take our e4 pawn so that we can give him the knight and play the Stafford gambit reverse, the other move is knight c6, which you will see most unprepared opponents playing, but here I just recommended playing knight g5 once again, double attacking the weak f7 pawn. And if pawn to d5 by black. We can even play this in the fried liver attack style, but instead of taking with a bishop, we take with our knight. Okay, so knight takes e6. We have to take the bishop with our knight so that if f takes e6, now we can go queen h5, inviting black to play pawn to g6 because they cannot block the check with their elbow, after which we take on c6 and damage black's pawn structure and take on e5 next, double attacking the pawn and the rook on h8. This should be the most deadly gambit in the king's pawn game that you can also try in classical tournaments. So you start with the Italian opening where you put your light squared bishop on c4. The top played move is bishop c5, after which you just cast a shot. It all starts going wrong after knight to f6, after which you go d4 immediately. The Deutz gambit. All the highlighted moves in red are blunders, except for one, bishop takes d4. Because if black plays e takes d4, you have e5. If knight g4, pawn to c3 is the main line, but hey, here at KaspaChess, we love sacrificing our bishop on f7, making our victims lose their right to castle and then get back our piece. And if knight takes, we go queen e4, d6, queen d5 check, king f8, and now here comes f4. I don't know why most people play pawn to c6, because that leads to mate in 8. If queen f6, we have rook takes, and wherever the king goes, it'll be checkmate. Let me just show you what I was expecting to see in the Deutz gambit, you guys, after we reached this position where black played bishop c5. So I played d4, that's the Deutz gambit. If black didn't capture with the dark squared bishop and instead used the pawn, I would have played pawn to e5, attacking the knight, and after knight g4, there's a sack that we always play in order to reach this position that you're seeing on the board, and this basically just makes black to lose his right to castle. So thank you so much for watching this video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if at all you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if at all you haven't already, in order to encourage me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. And well, nothing else to say. See you in the next video. Until next time.